History beyond sleep, where the secrets textbooks tried to bury finally awaken. Tonight,
There's a hush that lives beneath the great dome of St. Peter's Basilica, a hush so old it has its own memory. It clings to the golden walls, drifts softly between the marble saints, and slips under the sandals of those who dare to walk its hallowed floors after midnight. Even now, if you close your eyes and listen, you might hear it not with your ears, but somewhere deeper. It is the kind of silence that hums with stories not told, of doors not opened, of truths not spoken aloud in centuries. For this city of stone, this Vatican has doors, real doors, that no one opens anymore. Some are forgotten by time. Others are guarded fiercely by those who would rather history remain still. But 7 doors in particular remain sealed by choice, not rusted shut by age, but closed intentionally, ritually, and with a weight heavier than mere wood or iron. They are hidden behind tapestries and tucked beneath floors, behind altars, and inside shadowed halls that do not appear on tourist maps. They are sealed not just in material, but in purpose, and no official guide will tell you why. It begins with a strange pattern, hardly noticed by most. Visitors in the Vatican sometimes find themselves at dead ends. A hallway that should continue simply stops. A decorative door with no handle. A bronze gate that leads to a wall. A staircase roped off forever, and if you ask about them, the answer is always the same: a polite shrug, a vague comment, and the suggestion to move along. But the whispers say otherwise. They say there are 7 doors, each tied to a mystery buried deep in the Church's long, complex history. Some say these doors hide forbidden texts, others say relics, or even entire rooms of prophecy and power. Some still believe they conceal truths too terrible or sacred for the modern world. Yet the truth, like incense, drifts in and out of reach. To understand these sealed doors, we must begin not with the locks, but with the silence that surrounds them. A silence cultivated carefully over generations, passed from pope to pope, whisper to whisper. The Vatican, after all, is not only a center of faith, it is the last theocratic empire on earth. It governs not just with scripture, but with symbols, secrets, and shadows. Within these walls live not only monks and cardinals, but historians, archivists, and specialists in languages long lost. There are vaults where no sunlight has entered for over 1,000 years. There are scrolls touched only by gloved hands and parchments too fragile for breath. Here truth is preserved but not always shared. And in such a place a door is never just a door. It is an oath, a refusal, a message. Legends say the sealing of the first door happened after the fall of Constantinople. A frightened patriarch arrived in Rome carrying with him texts rescued from burning libraries. He begged the Pope to protect them, not share them, not study them, protect them. And so the Vatican did what it often does best. It preserved and it concealed. A door was sealed. The world turned, and behind that door, who knows? The other 6 followed over centuries, under strange circumstances. A sudden vision, a vanishing monk, a papal decree with no explanation. Each door marked not by what it contains, but by what it stops from being found. What is it, exactly, that we fear to know? That the history we teach is only half written? That power, even holy power, carries its own dark corners? Or is it something more subtle, something less dangerous and more divine? Perhaps the doors are not about hiding danger, but about guarding wonder, mysteries so profound, so sacred, that even to speak of them would tarnish their meaning. In this way, the Vatican becomes not just a church, but a vault of the unknown, a guardian not of relics alone, but of the threshold between what can be explained and what must only be honored. In time, the presence of these doors faded into legend. Tourists walked past them, their eyes drawn upward to the dome, never noticing the silence pressing softly at their backs. Guides left them off their routes, maps omitted them, and the Vatican itself neither confirmed nor denied. Still, the doors remain, each one quietly sealed, each one carrying with it a specific story, some beautiful, some haunting, all unfinished. And so, dear listener, we begin this journey not with the unlocking of those doors, but with the quiet reverence they inspire. Let us walk slowly, softly, and with wonder. Let us listen to the stones, for the doors may be sealed, but the stories behind them still whisper through the silence beneath the dome. As we drift deeper into the Vatican's hidden halls, remember this: sometimes the most sacred truths are the ones left unspoken, and sometimes the best way to understand a mystery is to simply sit with it and let the silence speak. A door is never just a door. It is a line drawn across reality, a decision made in wood and stone, and on the other side something different, something you were not meant to see until the moment is right, or perhaps never at all. Across all ages and empires, the human soul has regarded the doorway as something sacred, not just a passage from room to room, but a movement from state to state, ignorance to knowledge, life to death, purity to transformation. And nowhere is this reverence more deeply carved than in the architecture of belief. In ancient Egypt, the afterlife began at a door, not a metaphorical one, but an actual carved threshold, painted on tomb walls, through which the soul would walk, judged and weighed. Babylon, too, had its sacred gates. The Ishtar Gate, tiled in lapis blue, stood not only as an entry to a city, but as a transition to something divine, something protected. Step beneath it, and you moved not only into a space, but into an understanding. The Hebrews placed the blood of a lamb above their doorways, marking themselves for protection. The Greeks wrote spells on lintels. The Romans named their door God. Janus, the two-faced spirit who watched both entry and departure, the seen and the unseen. And in the early Christian world, a door was not just an architectural feature. It was an invitation, an echo, a choice. As the centuries turned and cathedrals rose like mountains, the theology of architecture deepened. Each stone was laid with purpose, each arch meant to lift the eyes and the soul toward heaven, and the doors, they became sermons made of oak and bronze. The outer doors of cathedrals were designed to awe the sinner, to speak of judgment and grace before one even stepped inside. The smaller doors inside, toward sacristies, chapels, libraries, whispered instead of shouted. They were veils, curtains of wood. Waiting. To step through such a door was never casual. It was ritual. You entered through penance. You passed through prayer. You knelt before the unseen. The Vatican, the heart of Catholicism, absorbed and amplified this symbolic power. Over generations, its architects folded layer upon layer of meaning into each corridor, stairwell, and sealed gate. Because within these walls, space itself was sacred, and so was what it concealed. Some doors were made for kings and cardinals, others for shadows. Some were adorned with Latin and gold. Others bore no markings at all, only silence. The doors we now know as sealed may have once opened like any other. A creak in the morning, a close at night. But time and intention transformed them. One day they opened. The next they didn't, and no one spoke of it again. Why? Why does a place of light and faith seal its own arteries? The answers lie not in fear, but in ritual power. You see, a closed door is not simply forgotten, it is closed with purpose, often ritually, sometimes even liturgically. In rare ceremonies. Doors are sealed with incense and oil, chants spoken not for the living, but for the echoes of what lies beyond. In such moments the act of sealing becomes holy. It declares, no further, not just a people, but to time itself. It is a pause, suspended in stone, an act of devotion, restraint, and reverence. One must understand this. In Catholic theology, space is not neutral. It is charged with meaning. To walk from nave to altar is to walk a spiritual journey. To move from one doorway to another is to cross metaphysical lines between the secular and sacred, the profane and the eternal. So what happens when a door is shut permanently? It is not just a logistical choice. It is a theological one. It says, this path is no longer yours. Or perhaps, this mystery is not ready for light. Let us pause for a moment and imagine. What if you stood before one of these 7 doors? Let's say it was simple wooden with a worn iron handle. Half buried in the stone wall of a corridor, few now walk. You reach out, but the handle does not turn. It is fused, frozen by time or decree. Behind you, the corridor stretches into hushed silence. Ahead, only darkness. You press your ear to the door. There is nothing, and yet something. A pressure, a breath. You feel not fear, but threshold. Not invitation, but intent. The door is not just closed. It is meant to be closed. This, too, is part of the mystery. Not all forbidden things are dark. Some are sealed to protect beauty, to shield wonder from corruption, to keep the sacred from becoming spectacle. In the early centuries, the Church protected relics, bones of saints, splinters of crosses behind veils, and in locked reliquaries. Not because they were ashamed, but because they were honoring the holy. Secrecy here was not deception. It was preservation. Could the same be said of these 7 doors? That what lies behind them is not meant to be hidden in shame, but held in silence. Like a prayer whispered into a well, when a door is sealed in the Vatican, it is not only hidden from the world, it is placed into a new category, a sacred unknown, a holy pause, a chosen silence, and this silence becomes a kind of speech, a theology, written not in words but in withheld presence. As though the Church itself is saying, there are some truths you are not ready for. Some rooms must remain asleep. Some mysteries are more powerful unopened. And so we return to the present, to the polished halls and domes of the Vatican, to corridors swept each morning, candles lit each dusk, to the spaces tourists will never enter, to the shadows that still breathe behind marble and mosaic. There, the 7 doors remain, sealed, not just by key, but by meaning. Portals of flesh and spirit, guardians of the seen and unseen, and behind each one a silence that hums like sacred music only angels can hear. Sleep gently now, dear listener, the doors are closed. The night is long, and some truths, like dreams, arrive not through opening, but through quiet waiting. It stands in shadow, mostly ignored, worn by time, though not by touch. Framed by pale stone and flanked by silent guards, the bronze door is the first of the 7. Each morning, the sun glints faintly off its aged panels, never bright, never quite warm. A door that does not open, a door that does not speak. And yet it listens. Not far from St. Peter's Square, past the colonnades where doves circle and pilgrims murmur their prayers, this door waits. Tucked into a quiet corner of the apostolic palace, it blends into the stone as if hoping not to be noticed, but once seen it refuses to leave your thoughts. There is no sign, no keyhole, no footsteps leading toward it, only the strange sensation that something or someone waits on the other side. The Vatican refers to it only vaguely, calling it Porta di Bronzo, the bronze door. To most, it is thought to lead to the inner administrative offices of the Holy See, but those who live within the Vatican's rhythms know better. Because the bronze door is not used, not really, it hasn't swung open in decades, perhaps longer. The Swiss guard, always courteous, will nod if you ask about it, but their answers trail off like smoke in the basilica. The older ones change the subject altogether. It is, they say, not part of the public path. Then they glance away as if even the sentence were too direct, but records faint, fragmented, and reluctant to tell a stranger story. The bronze door, once used daily by papal messengers and archivists, was quietly sealed sometime in the late 1950s. No announcement, no decree. Just silence. One morning, a clerk found it locked. No one had the key. No locksmith was called. No records updated. It was as if the building itself had made a decision. And the legends? They filled the vacuum, as they always do in old places. Some whispered that the door sealed off a chamber of apostolic relics, items too sacred to display. Perhaps letters penned by the early followers of Christ, or fragments of the Apostle Peter's original writings never released to the world. Others, more cautious in tone, believed it guarded a vault of contradictions, documents from heresies never fully suppressed, testimonies from theologians whose visions of God were too wild, too beautiful, too uncontainable. There are even those few in number, but haunting in voice, who say that behind the bronze door lies a body, not embalmed, not martyred, but waiting. Let us walk backward now, just for a moment, to the late 19th century, when Pope Leo XIII commissioned a review of certain secret text scrolls that arrived from the desert monasteries of Egypt, dusty and barely intact. Within them were phrases that hinted at a gospel unknown, one that referred to a door through which the Spirit must pass before it returns to the Father, a metaphor, perhaps, or something more. Shortly after that, the bronze door began to appear in internal ledgers as restricted. By the 1930s, even that classification disappeared. It was removed from floor plans, then from schedules, then from memory until only the door itself remained. It is said that Pope Pius XII visited it alone once, late at night. Witnesses recall his footsteps in the hall and the rustle of his cassock in the stillness. He stayed at the door for nearly an hour. No one knows what he did, but afterward he spoke very little of anything at all. By the time his successor rose to the throne of Peter, the door had vanished from conversation entirely. There's something arresting about bronze, how it changes with time. The door, once gleaming, now carries a patina, the color of old secrets. Greenish, dusky, almost smoky to the eye. It has 12 panels, each blank. No symbols, no icons. Just smooth metal squares, evenly spaced. An absence of meaning that feels like a message in itself. Some say the panels once bore inscriptions that have since been erased. Others claim they were always empty, reflecting the souls of those who passed. If you stand in front of the door at dusk, the setting sun casts the faintest glow along the frame, and for just a moment you see yourself in the metal, not clearly, not truly, a blur, a question. A ghost. What would happen if someone tried to open it? That question haunts historians and conspiracy seekers alike, but none have dared. Not just because the Vatican forbids interference with sacred architecture, but because of something else, a sense, a quiet weight that says, don't. There are thresholds meant to be honored, not crossed. Mysteries meant to remain folded in shadow, and this door, more than any other, radiates that quiet warning. So what is it guarding? Is it a vault of relics, a room of lost theology? A warning made visible? Or perhaps it is the Church's way of saying some things must stay sealed, not because they are dangerous, but because they are holy. In the world of faith, we often think of revelation as light, but sometimes revelation is restraint. It is the choice not to know, the door not opened, the question not chased, the mystery allowed to be. And that, too, is sacred. As you drift now, perhaps you imagine yourself walking down that quiet corridor. The frescoed ceiling above, the marble floor beneath your feet, the hush of candles and centuries. You arrive at the bronze door. It towers before you, silent, still. You raise a hand, but do not knock. You do not need to. Its message is clear. What lies behind it is not meant to trouble your sleep. It is meant to guard your dream, to remind you that mystery has its place. That silence sometimes is the holiest sound of all. Rest now, gentle listener. The door is sealed, and so are your thoughts. Let them settle into sleep like old dust on sacred bronze. Let the unanswered remain a comfort, not a question. Deep within the Vatican's labyrinthine heart, past corridors lined with vellum bound, tomes and marble busts frozen in eternal contemplation, lies a door unlike any other, quiet, unassuming, yet shrouded in the heaviest silence. They call it the librarian's last passage. It is a door whispered about only in the softest tones by the custodians of the Holy See's greatest treasures, the Vatican secret archives. Behind it, they say, rest volumes that history dared not keep in light, scrolls that carry the breath of forgotten empires, and manuscripts whose very existence challenges the foundations of faith and power. This door has not been opened since the year 1917. The Vatican secret archives sprawling over 85 kilometers of shelving, guard more than just books. They are a vault of human knowledge, pain, hope, and often concealment. Here rest letters penned by emperors, diplomatic correspondences from wars long ended, and parchments documenting saints and sinners alike. And yet the librarian's last passage is a gate beyond even this. Though few have seen it, the door is made of heavy oak, reinforced with iron bands blackened by centuries. No handle graces its face. No inscription hints at what lies beyond. Only a faint, lingering scent of old leather and candle smoke dot. Why was it sealed? The year 1917 is no accident. It was a time when the world teetered on the edge of change. World War I raged, empires collapsed, and a new era of uncertainty crept over Europe. Inside the Vatican, a decision was quietly made. Some knowledge must be put away, locked behind that door, and left untouched. Perhaps the manuscripts spoke of forbidden alliances, heretical ideas, or truths that would shake the very faith the Church was built upon. Or perhaps they held histories that contradicted the stories told in stained glass and Scripture. The reasons remain locked as securely as the door itself. The librarian's last passage is more than a physical barrier. It is a symbol of limits, of the fine line between revelation and preservation. For the custodians of these archives, opening the door is not merely an act of curiosity. It is a crossing of a sacred boundary. Imagine the weight of such a responsibility. To guard not just objects, but the fragile trust between the past and the present. To keep secrets that, if revealed, might topple beliefs or ignite chaos. To carry silence is a sacred charge. Legend tells of a time when scholars petitioned the Vatican for access. They dreamed of deciphering the mysteries beyond the door, unveiling lost texts that might rewrite history itself. Their requests were met with gentle refusals, not out of arrogance, but reverence. For knowledge, like faith, is not simply possession. It must be earned, understood, and respected. And some doors, once closed, are meant to remain so, waiting for a time when humanity might be ready. The act of sealing the door was said to have been a ceremony, a ritual filled with prayers and incense, a moment when the guardians of the archives pledged to protect not just the physical manuscripts, but the sacred silence that enveloped them. This silence is thick, almost tangible. It drapes over the heavy oak and iron bands, creating a veil that few dare to pierce. It hums with unanswered questions and unspoken truths. Some whisper that the door guards not only texts, but echoes. Echoes of voices long silenced, ideas lost to time, and dreams deferred. It stands as a reminder that history is not only written in ink, but in what is left unrecorded. In this way, the librarian's last passage is a metaphor for the human condition, for the limits of knowledge and the mysteries that lie beyond understanding, for the doors we choose not to open in our own lives, and the silences we carry within. As night falls over the Vatican, the corridors grow still. The flicker of candlelight casts dancing shadows along the walls. And behind the librarian's last passage, the quiet breath of the past waits patiently unmoving, unread, an eternal. Sleep now, and let your mind wander gently through these halls of shadow and light. Know that some secrets are cradled in darkness, not as prisons, but as sanctuaries. and that sometimes the greatest wisdom lies in the silence behind the door. Beneath the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica, where the soaring dome kisses the Roman sky, lies a world unseen by millions, a world of shadows and silence, echoing with whispers of saints, martyrs, and centuries of prayer. It is here, beneath the altar's holy light, that one of the Vatican's most enigmatic doors rests carved. From volcanic stone, cold and unyielding, they call it the door beneath St. Peter's bones. This door is unlike the grand portals that welcome pilgrims or the gilded gates of the Vatican gardens. It is simple, nearly forgotten, yet sealed with a devotion so profound it reverberates through the very earth. St. Peter's Basilica is said to rest upon the tomb of St. Peter himself, the first of the apostles, the rock upon which the church was built. To stand above this sacred resting place is to stand at the threshold of history and faith. But beneath the marble and mosaic, the journey deepens. Archaeologists and historians know the area under the basilica as the necropolis, a city of the dead, a labyrinth of tombs and relics hidden under layers of stone and time. Within this subterranean world lies the door in question, guarded by centuries of prayer and secrecy. The door beneath St. Peter's bones is not merely a barrier of stone. It is a threshold between life and death, past and present. Legend says it was sealed centuries ago, with wax, prayer, and solemn ritual, an act not of imprisonment, but of protection. What lies beyond? Fragments of St. Peter's bones? Sacred relics hidden from the eyes of the world? Or a chamber filled with mysteries, too fragile for daylight? No visitor is allowed beyond this point. Not pilgrims, nor popes. Only the guardians of faith, those who bear the mantle of silence. Why seal a door beneath the bones of a saint? The answer lies in understanding the ancient reverence for relics. In the early church, relics were not mere artifacts, they were conduits of the divine. A fragment of bone, a sliver of cloth, could carry the blessing of heaven, but relics were also vulnerable to theft, to desecration, to the corruption of time. And so, sacred places were built not only to honor these relics, but to shield them in silence. The door beneath St. Peter's bones is one such shield. It is said that the door was sealed after a time of turmoil, when Rome was besieged by invaders, and whispers of heresy echoed through the city. The church sought to safeguard its heart. The bones of Peter, a symbol of unity and faith, had to be protected at all costs. The sealing was a sacred act, a vow made in whispered prayers and oil, to lock away not just relics, but the very spirit they embodied. But the door also guards a deeper mystery. Beneath the basilica's floors, some claim, lies a chamber of quiet power, a place where the veil between heaven and earth is thinnest. Pilgrims speak of feeling a presence, a gentle weight pressing on their souls as they descend into the necropolis. Some say it is the breath of the apostle himself. Others, a silence so profound it fills the heart with awe. The door beneath St. Peter's bones marks the boundary of this sacred space. It is the last barrier between the mortal world and the divine mystery below. Over centuries, many have sought to uncover what lies beyond. Archaeologists with their tools, theologians with their questions, pilgrims with their prayers, but the door remains closed, not from neglect, but by design. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant for revelation, but reverence, that faith sometimes requires surrender to the unknown. Tonight, as you rest your head, imagine the journey beneath the basilica, the cool air of ancient stone corridors, the soft flicker of candlelight, the scent of incense lingering in the air. Picture the door beneath St. Peter's bones standing firm, a silent guardian of sacred history. Behind it, time sleeps, and with it the quiet heartbeat of a faith that has endured through darkness and light. Let your breath slow and your thoughts settle. The door is sealed, but your soul is free to wander. Rest in the mystery, and let the silence beneath the dome cradle you into peaceful dreams. In the quiet gardens of the Vatican, where cypresses sway gently and the air carries the scent of ancient stone and blooming jasmine, there is said to be a door no longer seen, a doorway swallowed by ivy and time. They call it the Templar threshold. This door does not appear on maps. It is whispered about in stories told in hushed tones by those who study secret orders and forgotten oaths. For centuries, the Knights Templar were among the most powerful forces in Christendom, warriors sworn to protect pilgrims, guardians of treasure, and keepers of arcane knowledge. Yet their sudden fall in the 14th century remains a mystery woven with shadows and suspicion. The Templars' connection to the Vatican was close yet complicated. They served the Church with fierce loyalty, but also amassed power that threatened kings and popes alike. Their vaults were said to contain relics stolen or safeguarded from the Holy Land, perhaps even fragments of the true cross or the Holy Grail itself. When Pope Clement V, under pressure from King Philip IV of France, moved to disband the order, their properties were seized, their members arrested or executed. And some say that the Vatican sealed a door to protect what remained treasures, secrets, and perhaps even survivors. This vanished door in the Vatican gardens is rumored to have been the final meeting place of the Templars within Rome, a hidden chapel or vault where whispers of rebellion and revelation once echoed. And when the order was crushed, this door was shut tight, overgrown, and forgotten by all but a few. The ivy that now cloaks it is a living shroud, green fingers slowly reclaiming what was hidden by stone and silence. Why would the Vatican seal this threshold? Because some knowledge is a double-edged sword. The Templars were not just knights. They were scholars, alchemists, and seekers of hidden wisdom. Their manuscripts contained knowledge that challenged orthodox belief, ideas that might fracture. The Church, if revealed, the door, therefore, is a symbol, a boundary drawn between accepted faith and forbidden truth, between power wielded in light and power buried in shadow. Historians have searched for signs of this door, for clues to what lies beyond. They follow architectural hints, a seam in the stone, a patch of newer brickwork, an uneven step. But the Vatican remains silent. The secrecy is not accidental. It is deliberate, because opening this door might mean opening old wounds, or opening new questions. Imagine stepping through that door once open, the flicker of candlelight on stone walls, the murmur of prayers mingling with the clink of armor, scrolls laid open on oak tables, their ink faded but their secrets alive. It is a place suspended between eras, where the sacred and the forbidden meet, and then the door closes again, sealing The echoes inside that Templar threshold reminds us of the fragile dance between faith and doubt, power and humility. It stands as a testament to the Church's complex history, a history not only of saints and miracles, but also of secrets and silence. As you settle into sleep tonight, let your mind wander through those hidden gardens, past the ivy and stone, to the silent door that no longer opens. Feel the weight of centuries pressing gently on your dreams. Know that some mysteries are best kept in quiet reverence. Rest now, dear listener. The door is sealed, but the stories behind it live on, soft as a whisper, deep as the night. Beneath the ancient stones of the Vatican lies a chamber where whispers gather soft, secretive voices carried on the breath of centuries. This is the crypt of forgotten confessions, a door sealed not merely to guard space, but to silence the echoes of sins long past. Confession, the sacred act of unburdening the soul, is usually a passage toward light, forgiveness, and renewal. Yet this door holds the memory of confessions too heavy to be carried, too complex to be released. It is a place where the weight of human frailty lingers, a threshold where the sacred and the shadow meet. The crypt sits below the Church of St. Mary of the Angels and Martyrs, hidden away from public gaze. Long ago it served as a small chapel, a sanctuary for penitents seeking solace. But over time it transformed into something else, a vault for confessions that, for reasons both earthly and divine, could not be spoken aloud. Why would confessions be hidden? Because some truths, when voiced, can unravel more than they mend. Secrets of power, betrayal, and forbidden knowledge found their way into this chamber, voices that threatened not only individuals, but the very structure of the Church. The door sealing this crypt is heavy and unadorned, wrought iron darkened by time and layered with silent prayers. It is said to have been sealed after the Reformation, when the Church faced not only spiritual upheaval, but political threats as well. Inside, the murmurs of confessions became too dangerous, too revealing. Priests and monks swore oaths to guard these secrets beyond death. And so the door closed, locking away not just the physical space, but the sacred trust and burden it contained. Legends tell of voices still heard by those who wander nearby on quiet nights. Soft confessions carried by the wind, blending with the prayers of monks and the flicker of candle flames. Whispers of regret, hope, despair, and mercy, all held captive within stone walls. Some say that opening the door would release these voices into the world, overwhelming faith and reason alike. Others believe the door protects the living from sins that have no end. The crypt of forgotten confessions reminds us that faith is complex, woven with light and shadow, grace and guilt, that even in sacred spaces, silence holds power. And some doors are sealed not to hide, but to heal. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine the soft rustle of robes and the quiet footsteps of penitents. Feel the weight of countless souls there, stories folded gently into the darkness behind that sealed door. Let the silence cradle your heart and guide you into peaceful rest. Sleep softly now. Dear listener, the door is closed, but the prayers within are eternal, whispering mercy, weaving peace into the night. Tucked beneath the northern wing of the apostolic palace, far from the guided paths and gilded chapels, there lies a sealed door draped in forgotten time. It bears no name on official documents, No tourists ever pass by, but among Vatican archivists it is known by an older, stranger name, the Chamber of the Moon Almanac. They say it once opened only on certain nights, by candlelight, and only to those who could read the stars. This was no ordinary room. Its purpose was not devotion, but observation. For long before the Church ruled by law and liturgy, it watched the heavens quietly, precisely, and with deep, secret care. The Vatican, though a spiritual empire, has always had one eye fixed skyward. In the Middle Ages, the phases of the moon dictated feast days, fasts, and harvest blessings. Even today, the timing of Easter is calculated by lunar rhythm, not solar calendar. But the Chamber of the Moon Almanac held something more, a celestial archive, delicate and profound. Manuscripts inked with diagrams of eclipses, comets, and rare conjunctions. Scrolls cross-referenced against ancient Mesopotamian star, tables, and Egyptian sky glyphs. Bindings in Latin, Aramaic, and Greek, all charting time by light that traveled through darkness. Why was it sealed? Not for heresy, not for danger, but for disruption. In the late 1600s, a manuscript surfaced within the chamber, its origin uncertain, its script undeciphered. Bound in lambskin and smelling faintly of anise, it described a future lunar alignment, one that, when decoded, seemed to predict the collapse of a great pillar of faith. The manuscript bore no author, no clear date, only a series of symbols, a cycle of moons, and one chilling line in the margin: when silver aligns with sorrow, the veil shall fall. Some said it was nonsense. Others weren't so sure. The Vatican's astronomers were divided. Should it be studied or locked away? A conclave was held not of cardinals, but of silent scholars, and their decision was swift. The chamber would be closed, its contents preserved, but sealed behind iron, wax, and prayer. Thus the fourth door was added to the silent seven. Today, the door is half hidden behind a panel of carved stone, depicting cherubs gazing skyward. It looks decorative, innocent, but those who work late in the building say they sometimes hear a rustling like parchment turning in a quiet room, or see a faint silver glow spill beneath the door when the moon is full. One archivist, since retired, claimed she once passed by the chamber at midnight during a blue moon. The door, she said, was warm to the touch, and on the stone beside it, someone had scrawled a tiny crescent in #. It vanished by morning. Could it be that the church once housed its own lunar cult? Not of worship, but of watching? A secret order tasked with interpreting celestial signs and safeguarding prophetic cycles? If so, their records now rest in the darkness behind that door, undisturbed, unread, not because they are false, but because they may be true. The Chamber of the Moon Almanac reminds us of the humility once present in faith, a time when even popes looked upward and said, "We do not know, but we listen." In its silence we hear the longing of humans who tried to map the mystery, who saw divine rhythm not only in Scripture, but in stars. And what of the manuscript? It has not been destroyed. It rests, scholars believe, atop a pedestal of black wood, surrounded by a ring of crushed glass and holy oil. No one has turned its pages in over 300 years. No one has dared. For what if it is not simply astronomy? What if it is a message from the divine or from a forgotten future? Tonight, as you rest beneath your own quiet sky, think of those who once stood on Vatican rooftops, charting moons by candlelight. Think of scrolls bound by silent monks who measured time not by hours, but by the whisper of celestial tides. The door is sealed. The knowledge sleeps, but the moon still rises Dot, and it remembers Dot's sleep now, stargazer of stories. Let the stars guide your dreams. Let the moonlight wrap you in its cool, ancient glow. And let the sealed chamber keep its rhythm until the silver once again aligns with the sorrow we do not yet understand. There was once a room where books whispered behind iron grates, where parchment and leather crackled with forbidden heat, not from flame, but from ideas alive, defiant, trembling with the courage to question. This was the index room, a chamber known only to the highest centers of the church, and the door that once led into it has not opened in over a century. Dot. It stands now, silent and smooth, carved from black walnut and framed by a Latin inscription long faded. Not a heavy door like the others, no iron bands or bolts, but something more unsettling. The simplicity of a threshold once crossed by conviction, now guarded by deliberate silence. For centuries the Church kept a list, the Index Liberum Prohibitorum, the index of forbidden books, a registry of writings deemed dangerous to the soul, philosophies that burned too brightly, truths that refused to kneel. Dot. It was not a vindictive list, but a protective one, or so the Vatican believed. To read was to risk. To think too freely was to fall. Within the walls of the Vatican, a team of scholars once worked day and night, poring over volumes of poetry, science, magic, and doubt. Each page was weighed not for truth, but for obedience. The index room was their sanctum. But over time it became something else. As the world outside began to awaken enlightenment, revolution, rebellion, the Church found itself facing a tide of thought it could no longer contain. Books once condemned began to spread like dandelion, seeds across borders, into libraries, into minds. And the index became a ghost of itself. In 1966, the Church formally abolished the list, but the room remained, locked, not emptied, just forgotten. Or perhaps sealed. What remains inside that door? Shelves of forbidden knowledge, certainly titles banned and annotated in crimson ink, but also the minds of those who banned them. Marginalia, written by fearful hands, footnotes that tremble with unease. A history not of suppression alone, but of struggle to hold the world still as it began to turn too quickly. That even the holiest man in the world sometimes just needs a place to fall apart and to be alone with God. Tonight, as the world slows and shadows lengthen across your room, let yourself imagine walking down that curved staircase, each step softened by the quiet breath of time. You arrive at the door, not to open it, but to feel what it protects. Not a secret, not a mystery. Just a moment of soul-deep silence, where even truth kneels. Sleep now, gentle soul. You carry no crown, no burden of papacy, but you too deserve a room where nothing is asked of you. Let this be that room tonight. Let the silence hold you. Let peace arrive not with thunder, but with stillness. In the quiet heart of the Vatican, where marble corridors hum softly with centuries of prayer, there lies a vault unlike any other. It is said that within its walls reside hymns never sung, aloud melodies composed in shadows, and voices forever silenced by solemn oath. This is the vault of silent hymns, a sealed door, guarding music too sacred, too dangerous, or too sorrowful for public ears. Music has always been the language of the divine, a bridge between earth and heaven. Within the Catholic tradition, hymns carry prayers, hopes, and sacred stories in soaring notes and gentle refrains. Yet not all songs are meant for the light. Some melodies tell of doubt, others of secret devotion, and some, whispered in forgotten tongues, echo with warnings too profound to be heard by the unprepared. The vault of silent hymns was sealed during the Counter-Reformation, a time when the Church sought to assert order and orthodoxy against rising tides of change. It was a period both fierce and fragile, where power and prayer intertwined in uneasy balance. Within the vault were gathered musical manuscripts, some composed by monks who had tasted exile, others by composers condemned for unorthodox influences. Their notes carried whispers of forbidden beliefs and reflections on faith that diverged from the official doctrine. Why seal music? Because music moves beyond words. It touches the soul directly, bypassing reason and authority. A hymn can inspire, comfort, or unsettle in equal measure. The Church recognized that certain hymns could stir unrest, that some songs might awaken questions that sermons could not answer. So the vault was locked, its melodies confined to silence. Over centuries, the vault became a place of myth. Stories spread among Vatican choirs and scholars about a haunting melody that once escaped, a tune that brought tears and visions of lost paradise to those who heard it. No one could say whether it was true or mere legend, yet the silence of the vault itself became a hymn of its own, a testament to the power and peril of sacred sound. The door to the vault is simple, yet resolute, carved with delicate musical notation, faded almost beyond recognition. Its lock is said to be an ancient mechanism, a puzzle requiring knowledge both of music and scripture. Only a handful have ever held the key. Imagine the moment when the door was sealed, monks chanting the dies, ere as the lock clicked shut, candles guttering in the draughty chamber, a final note hanging in the air, unresolved, unfinished, eternal. The silence that followed was profound. It was not absence, but presence. The weight of voices paused, waiting. Some say that the hymns within hold secrets about the divine that the written word cannot contain. Others believe they carry coded messages, prophecies hidden in melody, warnings carried in harmonies dot, and still others think the vault protects music too painful to be heard, songs of grief for a world lost, prayers for a faith tested by time. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let your heart listen for these silent hymns. Imagine their notes swirling in the quiet Vatican air, weaving through the marble halls, brushing past frescoes and gilded altars. Though the door remains closed, their echo lingers, a gentle reminder that faith, like music, is sometimes spoken. Best in silence, not rest now, dear listener. Let the silent hymns cradle you. Let their unheard melodies soothe your spirit. And let peace rise in your dreams like a chorus whispered on the wind dot at the very edge of the Vatican's vast labyrinth, where shadows deepen and the hum of daily life fades to a whisper, lies the final of the 7 sealed doors. This is the archivist's vaulted chamber reserved for the oldest, most fragile scrolls and secrets too delicate to withstand the light of day. But it is more than a vault. It is a seal, a promise, and a guardian of the sacred trust between the past and the future. The archivist's vault holds manuscripts that predate even the Vatican itself, texts written by early Christians, philosophers, mystics, and scribes whose words shaped the foundations of Western thought. Many are fragments, weathered and worn, written in scripts that only a few still understand. This is a place where time itself seems to slow, where each page is a fragile bridge across centuries. The vault was sealed centuries ago, during a time of upheaval when threats from outside and within forced the Church to protect its most precious legacies. The door was locked not only to preserve these manuscripts from physical decay, but to shield their truths from those not yet ready to receive them. Why seal such knowledge? Because the archivist's vault is a repository of contradictions. Within its walls lie both the divine and the doubtful, texts that affirm faith alongside those that question it, scriptures alongside philosophical treatises that challenge dogma. To open the vault is to step into a dialogue between certainty and mystery, a conversation still unfolding across time. Guardians of the vault are few and sworn to silence. They understand that these manuscripts are not relics to be displayed, but living voices to be respected. Each sealed page carries a story, sometimes comforting, sometimes disquieting. Among the vault's treasures is said to be a codex, written in a cipher lost to history, a book said to contain the true name of God, known only to those who would use it wisely. Others speak of letters between church fathers debating the nature of the soul, hidden away because their questions were too unsettling. The vault's door itself is a masterpiece carved with delicate symbols and inscriptions in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. Its lock is intricate, a puzzle designed to be solved only by the archivist's key, passed down through generations in secrecy. The final seal is not a barrier, but a threshold, a reminder that some knowledge must be approached with humility, patience, and respect. That wisdom is not possession, but a journey. Tonight, as you settle into rest, imagine walking through the cold halls of the Vatican's deepest archives. Hear the faint rustle of parchment, the whisper of quills, and the soft footsteps of those who guard these ancient voices. Let the archivist's vault remind you that some doors remain sealed not out of fear, but out of reverence for the fragile truths they contain. Let your dreams wander freely beyond the seals, in quiet curiosity and peace. There is a story the Vatican never officially tells. No mention in the ledgers, no footnote in the archives, no sermon bearing its name. But among certain circles, those who dust shelves in the apostolic library, who guard quiet hallways at dawn, it is remembered. They speak of the cardinal who vanished, a man of scripture and silence, a scholar who, it is said, found the key to one of the 7 doors and walked through. He was never seen again. His name was Cardinal Giacomo Bellini. Born to a modest family in Naples, he rose through the ranks not by politics, but by devotion. He studied in dim cloisters by candlelight, translated scrolls no one else dared touch, and spoke rarely, save in prayer or Latin dot, to those who knew him. He was gentle, thoughtful, a man who loved books more than power, who lingered too long in the Vatican archives when the sun had long set. It is said that Bellini became obsessed with the sealed doors, not out of rebellion, but reverence. He believed that the Church had buried not danger, but guidance, that within the chambers lay truths not meant to destroy faith, but deepen it. He was especially drawn to one door, the location, never named, but believed by some to be the door beneath St. Peter's bones. He visited it often, standing before it with his hands folded, as though listening for something. And one night he did not return. The official records claim he died of illness in his sleep. But there was no body, no funeral, only silence and a sudden reassignment of his private secretary to a post far from Rome. But whispers tell a different story. They say Bellini found a manuscript in the restricted archives. Not a map, but a parable, a story of a man who found light not by walking toward it, but by passing through the dark. They say he began having dreams of stairs winding downward, of voices humming beneath the earth, of a door opening without a key, simply because it was time. One night, Bellini descended alone with a candle and a small leather-bound notebook. He wore his red cassock, though he expected no audience. And, as the bells rang midnight, the door opened not with sound, but with a soft release, like the exhale of a long-held breath. No one saw him pass through, only that the candlelight disappeared, and with it Bellini. What did he see? Some say the room beyond held relics too holy for human eyes. Others say it was empty, that the mystery was not what lay within, but what it meant to enter at all. A few believe he never vanished, not truly, that he remains within one of the chambers, not alive or dead, but kept as guardian, witness, or quiet part of the silence. His notebook was found days later on a stone ledge beside the sealed door. The ink had bled, as though touched by water or tears. On the final page, written in his careful hand, was a single line: "He who walks into mystery must leave certainty behind." Bellini's story is not a cautionary tale. It is not about arrogance or punishment. It is a story of longing, of a man who sought the heart of his faith not in doctrine, but in encounter, of someone who loved truth enough to risk being changed. By it, the Vatican has never acknowledged the incident. The door remains sealed, but guards now patrol the area more closely, and the logs that once mentioned Bellini's name have been redacted with thin lines of ink, yet the memory lingers, like the echo of a hymn long past, or the scent of candle smoke in a room that hasn't burned one in years. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine standing at the edge of such a door, not to open it, but simply to be near, to feel the pull of mystery not as danger, but as invitation. Let Cardinal Bellini's quiet courage fill your dreams. Let his faith walk beside you, not loud, not certain, but open and listening. Rest now, gentle seeker. The door is sealed, but your wonder is not. Let it guide you through the silent corridors of sleep, where questions are sacred, and the answers are not always what matters most. Long before the Vatican became marble and gold, before its vaults were stacked with canon, law, and before the world was neatly divided into sacred and profane, there were travelers from the East, wise men, stargazers, mystics. They came not with dogma, but with gifts, gold, myrrh, frankincense, and perhaps something else, something the Church quietly kept, something that, according to legend, now rests behind the seventh and most mysterious door, the mirror of the Magi, This chapter of the Vatican's hidden history does not begin in Rome. It begins in the sands of Persia, beneath constellations, drawn in silver light, where seers watch the skies for signs not of weather, but of destiny. Among these sages were the Magi keepers of ancient wisdom, initiates in the star-born sciences. When a new star appeared, they followed it westward, carrying with them a mirror, unlike any other. Not a looking glass, but a lens of polished obsidian said to show not your reflection, but your truth. The Vatican denies possessing such a relic. And yet, deep within the sub-basements of the Archivum Secretum, there are sketches and faded ink diagrams of a dark circular disc framed in gold, annotated in multiple hands, dotted as never named directly, only referenced as Speculum Regum Orientium, the mirror of the Eastern kings, a forbidden object. As sacred mistake, the mirror is said to have passed into the Church's care during the 4th century, when Bishop Marcellinus reportedly received it from an Eastern monastery that feared its power. Those who looked too long, it was claimed, began to speak in riddles. Some saw their future. Others saw the world as it truly was, stripped of illusion, hierarchy, and comfort. Some wept. Others went silent. A few went mad. The Church, cautious and newly triumphant, sealed the mirror behind a door known only to the High Archivist and the reigning Pope. It was not destroyed. That, perhaps, would have been too dangerous. Instead, it was sealed in a room with mirrored walls, where no reflection was true and no light fell directly. The chamber became known only in whispers as the mirror room, and the door that protects it was fashioned with polished copper, so that those who approached would see themselves first. It is the only door in the Vatican meant to warn rather than hide. Why was it sealed? Because the Church feared what it could not control. Not heresy, not prophecy, but revelation that bypassed the clergy and flowed straight into the hearts of men. The mirror, if it exists, does not flatter, it does not lie. It shows the soul in its rawest form, untainted by robes, titles, or prayer. Some say it was used only once in the presence of a dying pope, and that after gazing into it he asked for no grand funeral, only that his shoes be buried, with him worn and cracked, a symbol of a long walk, honestly made. To this day, the door remains untouched, covered in linen cloth and tucked behind a decoy panel near the Sistine Treasury. Only 3 men are said to know how to find it. None have dared in decades. The mirror of the Magi is not about vanity. It is not about magic. It is about the risk of being seen, truly seen. For to look into such a mirror is to meet not your sins or successes, but your essence, what you would be if no one had ever told you what to become. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your eyes grow heavy, picture that obsidian surface, quiet in the dark, waiting not to trap you, but to reflect the eternal part of you that cannot be stolen, stained or sealed. Rest now, dear dreamer. There is a mirror you needn't fear. You carry it already within the still waters of your own soul. Let it show you peace tonight, not perfection, just truth. History, we are told, is remembered through stone, parchment, and ritual. But in the far corners of the Vatican's memory, deeper than the archives, quieter than the basilicas, there lingers an older truth. Some things are remembered not by books, but by those who dare not forget. They were monks. Not many, fewer than a dozen. Men of prayer, silence, and an extraordinary task. They were called Custodes Veritatis, the keepers of truth, and they are the reason one of the Vatican's most mysterious doors was sealed from both within and without. The monks were chosen not for their rank or intellect, but for their endurance of silence. Each was trained not to speak for years at a time, not because of a vow, but because what they knew could never be said without consequence. Their job was simple and impossible: to remember the knowledge the Church dared not write down, ancient names, lost rites, accounts of visions, disappearances, and heresies, never punished, only hidden. They lived in a cloister beneath the old sacristy, a simple stone corridor, with 7 cells, a chapel, and 1 central chamber. That chamber was the memory vault, not filled with books or scrolls, but with silence, rhythm, and recitation. Each monk held a portion of what the Church could not risk storing in ink. Each memory passed down orally in quiet repetition, like a sacred melody no outsider ever heard. Why entrust such truths to human minds? Because parchment can burn, books can be stolen, but a disciplined memory can outlive kingdoms. These monks were not merely historians. They were living safes, chained not by iron, but by obedience, and protected by the fact that no one monk held the whole. But over time, something shifted. One of the monks began to question not the truths, but the silence itself. He believed that memory was meant to blossom, not wither in shadow, that to keep the sacred hidden was to let it die. He spoke only once, in the chapel, to the crucifix, and in that single whisper something changed. Shortly after, the monks were dispersed, each reassigned to remote places across the globe. The central chamber was sealed, and its entrance, formerly accessible through a narrow corridor beneath the sacristy, was closed with stone, and sacrament. No marker remains. Only a faint circle in the marble where the passage once began, and the name Custodes Veritatis was removed from all Vatican directories. Did the Church fear what they remembered? Perhaps, but more likely it feared what others might do if those memories were shared. Not all secrets are wicked. Some are simply too fragile for the world as it stands. There are rumors still of old monks in distant abbeys who, once a year, enter a silent room and recite words no one else understands. A chant without melody, a list without end, and when they finish, they close their eyes and weep not from sorrow, but from the burden of knowing what cannot be said. One archivist once claimed that he met one of them, long after the dispersal, an old man with eyes like storm clouds and hands that trembled only when he touched a Bible. When asked if the memory still lived in him, he answered simply, "Not in me, but through me," and then said nothing more. The door remains sealed, not by force, but by consent, because memory once stored in a heart does not need a lock, only reverence. Tonight, as you settle into the gentle quiet of your room, know that across the centuries there were those who bore the weight of remembering, so you could rest without a dot. Let them hold the truths too large for sleep. Let your breath slow, your heart soften, and your mind drift. The door is closed, but the memory is safe. Sleep now, gentle listener. There is no need to remember tonight. Let the old monks carry the weight for you. Let silence be your sanctuary. Let dreams be your prayer. Beneath the towering spires and marble facades of the Vatican lies a hidden world, an underground sanctuary where earth, water, and stone whisper forgotten secrets. Here, beneath the cloisters, are the secret gardens, a place where the church once nurtured more than just plants, a place sealed away, veiled in shadow, behind one of the 7 doors. The gardens are not like the sunlit courtyards visited by pilgrims. They are subterranean, guarded by ancient walls, and watered by springs believed to possess healing powers. Flowers grow here in eternal twilight, and herbs long lost to modern apothecaries bloom. Quietly in the damp earth dot, it is said that these gardens were tended by monks who practiced not only prayer, but the delicate art of alchemy and medicine. For centuries, the Church walked a careful line between faith and science. The secret gardens were a living laboratory, where sacred texts on healing mingled with the whispered knowledge of herbs, minerals, and celestial influence. Here monks brewed potions for kings and commoners alike. They crafted salves to soothe physical wounds and elixirs believed to mend spiritual fractures. But the gardens were more than a refuge for the body. They were a place of transformation, a symbol of the Church's silent acknowledgement that the divine dwells in growth, decay, and renewal. Each plant held meaning. Each root was a prayer. Each bloom a hymn sung in color. Why seal the gardens behind a door? Because the power they contained was twofold. It healed. It challenged. Healing was a gift. But knowledge could also be dangerous when wielded without faith, or when it threatened the established order. Alchemy, especially, walked a fine line. It was both a spiritual quest and a scientific pursuit, one that many feared might lead too close to forbidden mysteries. Legends say that a particular section of the gardens housed a tree unlike any other, its fruit shimmering silver in the dark, called the Tree of Silence. It was said to bear the power to reveal or conceal truth, depending on who tasted its fruit. The tree, like the gardens, was sealed behind the door. Some say it still grows, invisible to all but those with eyes to see. Over time, the gardens fell into shadow. Interest waned as new sciences emerged, and the Church turned its gaze outward to the world above. The door was locked with a blessing and a curse, a promise to protect and a warning to never disturb. Today, the secret gardens exist mostly in memory, and whispers pass between old gardeners and historians. Some believe that the air still holds the scent of night-blooming jasmine and ancient myrrh. Others say that if you listen closely near the sealed door on a quiet night, you can hear the faint rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of water, a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Imagine, as you drift toward sleep, stepping quietly into these underground gardens. Feel the cool soil beneath your fingers. Smell the sweet earth and secret blossoms. Let the peace of this hidden sanctuary fill you, a reminder that even in darkness, life persists. Even behind sealed doors there is growth. Rest now, gentle dreamer. Let the gardens beneath the cloisters nurture your soul. Let the silence of the sealed door remind you that healing often comes in quiet, hidden places, and that renewal is always possible, deep within the Vatican's ancient walls, beyond the grandeur of basilicas and the hush of grand libraries, lies a chamber seldom spoken of, a place where secrets breathe softly and voices linger long after confession has ended. This is the whispering hall of forgotten confessions, a room sealed away behind one of the 7 doors, where the echoes of whispered sins and prayers have gathered like a silent congregation. Confession is sacred. It is the act of unburdening the soul, the moment where vulnerability meets mercy. But what happens when confessions are forgotten or too dangerous to remember? The hall was built centuries ago, not as a place of judgment, but as a vault of mercy where words too perilous for daylight were held in trust. Within this chamber, the voices of the faithful once mingled with the murmurs of penitence, carrying stories of doubt, love, betrayal, and forgiveness. Some confessions revealed more than sin, secrets that could unsettle kingdoms, shake the foundations of power, or reveal truths better left unspoken. The Church, in its wisdom and caution, sealed the hall to protect both the sinners and the sanctity of their confessions. The architecture of the room is designed to hold sound without allowing it to escape. Whispers carried across vaulted ceilings and marble walls, reverberating softly like prayers trapped in time. No one outside the chamber could hear what was said, but within, the voices seemed to speak to each other, a chorus of human frailty, hope, and repentance. It is said that some confessors found themselves haunted by the echoes, not their own words, but those of others, reminding them that every soul is connected by a delicate thread of shared humanity. Over centuries, the hall gathered more than voices, it gathered memories, a mosaic of faith and fear, love and regret, whispered beneath layers of stone. Why seal such a place? Because the Church understood that the weight of secrets is both a burden and a balm. Some confessions hold power that could divide. Others contain truths that could heal, if wielded wisely. The hall was sealed not to silence, but to preserve, to keep safe the fragile balance between mercy and mystery. Legends tell of a key, forged from silver and blessed under a midnight moon, held by the Archbishop himself. It is said that only once every century may the door be opened, not to reveal secrets, but to release their grace. Tonight, as your breath deepens and the world grows still, imagine standing outside this chamber. Listen closely, not for words, but for the quiet peace that comes after confession. A stillness not of absence, but of forgiveness. Rest now, gentle heart. Let your own whispers of hope and healing float free. Know that within the sealed doors of the Vatican there is a sanctuary for your soul, and mercy, always mercy, waits beneath the shining domes and golden altars of the Vatican lies a secret archive few have ever glimpsed, a dimly lit repository known only as the Shadow Library. Behind one of the 7 sealed doors, this hidden library safeguards scrolls that were too dangerous, too divergent, or too mysterious to be shared with the wider Church or the world. The scrolls housed here are not merely old, they are relics of ideas suppressed, voices silenced, and histories rewritten. Writings by scholars whose thoughts challenged the Church's teachings. Philosophies that questioned the nature of divinity, faith, and mankind's place in the cosmos. Many scrolls speak of ancient rituals lost to time, mystical languages, and esoteric knowledge handed down by secret societies. Others contain theological debates so radical that their authors faced exile or worse. These texts remind us that faith, at its core, is also a struggle, a negotiation between certainty and doubt. The Shadow Library was sealed not to erase these, thoughts, but to protect the church from internal fracture. Its doors shut to keep both flame and shadow contained. Because knowledge, like fire, can warm or burn, the door guarding the shadow library is forged from iron and etched with symbols representing duality, light and dark, known and unknown. It bears no lock, but a silent oath, whispered by those sworn to guard it, binding them to secrecy. Legend tells of a scholar monk who once tried to steal a scroll from the shadow library. He vanished without trace, leaving behind only a faint scent of incense and burnt parchment dot his disappearance. Became a whispered warning, some say a sacrifice to keep the balance intact. Tonight, as you close your eyes and the world quiets, imagine walking softly through the shadow library's aisles. Feel the weight of ancient wisdom pressing gently against the silence, waiting patiently to be heard, not in words, but in reflection. Rest now, gentle seeker. Let the shadows teach you not fear, but humility. Know that even hidden truths can illuminate the soul, and that sometimes the deepest faith lies in embracing mystery, hidden within the Vatican's winding passages, where echoes of prayer mingle with the distant tolling of bells. Lies a chamber unlike any other, the clockwork chapel, a room sealed behind one of the 7 doors, where time itself seems to bend and breathe in quiet rhythm. The chapel was built during the Renaissance, an era of rebirth and rediscovery, where faith and science danced a delicate waltz. It was commissioned by a pope fascinated by the mechanics of the universe and the nature of eternity. Inside, intricate gears and cogs were embedded into the walls, floors, and ceilings, each moving in precise harmony, turning the passage of hours into a silent, sacred symphony. This was no ordinary chapel. Here, time was worshipped as a living presence, a mystery entwined with divinity. The clockwork mechanisms measured not only hours but celestial cycles, aligning prayers with the movements of stars and planets. Monks who tended the chapel believed that through this union one might glimpse eternity itself. But as centuries passed, the chapel's complex machinery began to falter. Repairs were costly and required secret knowledge, and so the door was sealed to protect the delicate balance within. Why seal a place where time and prayer meet? Because the clockwork chapel reminded all who entered that time is both a gift and a chain, that eternity is not simply endlessness, but a sacred moment caught between beginnings and endings. The chapel's silence now holds the ticking heartbeat of ages past, a reminder that even faith must reckon with the flow of time. Legend tells that on certain nights when the moon is full and the Vatican sleeps, the gears turn once more, and the chapel fills with a soft chime like a prayer whispered on the wind. Those fortunate enough to hear say it brings peace, a quiet sense of being part of something greater than themselves. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, imagine stepping into the clockwork chapel. Feel the gentle ticking surround you, a rhythm steady and sure, marking the sacred dance of time and spirit. Rest now, gentle soul. Let time's quiet pulse soothe your mind. Know that in the grand clock of existence, each moment is both fleeting and eternal, and your breath is part of this sacred rhythm. In the dim light of a flickering candle, amid the scent of aged parchment and ink, there lived once a man whose hand shaped the very light of faith. He was the illuminator and artist and monk whose delicate brush traced gold and color onto sacred manuscripts, bringing holy stories to life. His work was more than decoration. It was a prayer, a meditation, a secret language whispered in light and shadow. But there was one manuscript, one page, that the illuminator dared not finish. A page behind one of the Vatican's 7 sealed doors. A page said to hold the final illumination, a truth too profound to reveal. The door that hides. This manuscript is small and unassuming, tucked away in a quiet corridor. Its lock bears the mark of a flame, a symbol of light, both creative and consuming. The illuminator's final candle burned low as he wrestled with his work. Each stroke of gold leaf was weighed with doubt and devotion. He knew that this illumination would speak not only to the eyes but to the soul. What did it reveal? No one outside the sealed room can say. Some whisper that it depicted the end of days, not as fire and destruction, but as gentle transformation, a final light passing softly through shadow. Why seal such a work? Because the truth it held was not a story of fear, but of acceptance. A truth too delicate for the turmoil of the world, too tender for those unready to see light and darkness. The Church protected it, not to hide, but to wait for a time when the world could embrace the illumination fully. Legend tells that the illuminator, before his final days, lit a single candle and left a note. Light is not lost by passing through shadow, but by refusing to burn. Since then, the candle has remained unlit, a symbol of patience and hope. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine that gentle flame flickering softly in the dark, a light that does not consume, but comforts, a light that waits quietly for you to find it. Rest now, gentle spirit. Let the last candle of the illuminator guide your dreams. Know that light and shadow are part of the same sacred dance, and that peace is found in embracing both. Above the grandeur of the Vatican, hidden beyond the sight of pilgrims and priests, stands a tower long forgotten by time and prayer, its bells forever silent, its history locked behind one of the 7 sealed doors. This is the Tower of Silent Bells, a place where sound was once born, then muted by fear and reverence. The bells of the Vatican have always marked moments of joy and sorrow, celebration and solemnity. They called faithful to worship, announced the passing of popes, and told in times of trial. But in this forgotten tower the bells never rang, or rather they ceased to ring centuries ago. The story goes that the bells were forged during a turbulent era, their bronze cast from metals sourced across Christendom. They were meant to be a chorus to the heavens, calling angels down and uniting the faithful below. But soon after their installation, strange occurrences began. Pilgrims who heard the bells reported visions, shadowy figures drifting between the stones, voices carried on the wind that spoke in unknown tongues. Some fell ill, others disappeared. The Church, cautious and protective, ordered the tower sealed and the bells silenced. Why seal a tower of bells? Because sound is power. The ringing bell can awaken faith or fear. It can summon peace or summon storms. The silent bells became a symbol of what happens when divine communication is disrupted, when voices once heard clearly become whispers lost in shadow. Over the centuries, the tower fell into disuse. Its bells, though present, were wrapped in cloth and stone, muffling their voices. Only a few know the exact location of the door leading to the tower, guarded by keys passed down in secret. Legends say that on stormy nights, when the Vatican sleeps and the wind is right, you can hear faint chimes, soft echoes of the silent bells, calling not to the faithful, but to the mysteries themselves. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your body sinks into rest, imagine standing beneath that silent tower, listening not for noise, but for the quiet presence of something waiting to be heard. Rest now, gentle soul. Let the silence of the bells calm your mind. Know that sometimes the deepest prayers are those unspoken, and that peace often dwells in quiet moments between sound and silence. Hidden behind one of the 7 sealed doors lies a chamber untouched by time, a sanctuary where art and faith intertwine in delicate harmony. This is the painter's secret chamber, where masterpieces unseen by the world rest beneath layers of dust and silence. Centuries ago, a painter was commissioned to capture the divine, not through words, but through color, light, and shadow. His work was said to reveal hidden truths, mysteries whispered not in scripture, but in brush strokes. The painter's name is lost, swallowed by the silence that guards his chamber. But his legacy remains in the walls he adorned, paintings that seem to breathe and change when viewed from different angles. The chamber was sealed not to hide art, but to protect it from those who might misuse its power. For these paintings are said to contain visions, prophecies encoded in pigment, mysteries embedded in canvas. Each painting tells a story beyond the visible, inviting the viewer to look deeper, beyond the surface. Some say the painter was touched by divine inspiration. Others whisper that his talent was a gift from shadows, an alchemy of light and darkness. Church chose to seal his chamber when the paintings began to evoke not only wonder, but fear. For art that stirs the soul can also unsettle it. Legend tells that the painter left behind a final work, hidden beneath a false panel, an image said to reveal the ultimate truth. But no one has ever seen it. The chamber's door bears a carved symbol, a palette and brush crossed with a quill, a silent testament to the union of faith and creativity. Tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy, imagine standing before this secret chamber. See the shifting light across ancient pigments. Hear the soft brush of color against canvas, and feel the quiet power of creation held in sacred stillness. Rest now, gentle dreamer. Let the painter's secret chamber inspire your own inner light. Know that creativity is a sacred gift, and that the deepest mysteries are often painted in silence. In the hushed corridors of the Vatican, whispered tales tell of a garment unlike any other, a cloak woven not from cloth alone, but from the very essence of shadows. This is the cloak of shadows, hidden behind one of the 7 sealed doors, a relic shrouded in mystery and reverence. Legend says the cloak was crafted by a secret order of monks who understood that true power lies not in light alone, but in the delicate dance between light and dark. The fabric is said to shimmer with an otherworldly hue, shifting with every movement, rendering the wearer nearly invisible in the dim glow of candlelight. The cloak was not made for vanity or deception. It was a symbol of humility and sacrifice, worn by those who chose to walk unseen in service to a higher calling. Monks who donned the cloak were said to move through the Vatican's secret passages, guardians of sacred knowledge and silent watchers of history's unfolding. Why seal such a relic? Because the cloak embodies paradox. It is both concealment and revelation, a reminder that some truths are carried quietly away from the eyes of the world. The Church sealed the door to protect the cloak, not as a weapon, but as a sacred trust. Stories say the cloak was last worn during a time of great peril, when secrets threatened to unravel the fabric of faith itself. Its wearer vanished, leaving behind only whispers and footprints lost to time. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, imagine slipping into the cloak of shadows. Feel the soft embrace of silence around you, the gentle concealment of the unseen. Let it remind you that sometimes strength lies in stillness and power in humility. Rest now, gentle soul. Let the cloak enfold you in quiet peace. Know that in the dance of light and shadow, you carry your own sacred strength, and that silence can be the loudest prayer. At the heart of the Vatican, among the 7 sealed doors, lies the last, the door that is not just a barrier but a covenant, a final seal forged not from iron or stone, but from promise and silence. This door is guarded by the keeper, a solitary figure sworn to a sacred oath, to protect what lies beyond with unwavering faith and quiet strength. The keeper's role is ancient, passed down through generations in whispers and sacred texts. Each keeper takes a vow not only to guard the door, but to carry its secret in their heart alone. The final seal is said to contain the essence of all that the Vatican has chosen to hide, not merely objects or knowledge, but the weight of history, faith, and human frailty intertwined. It is a place where truth and mystery converge, where silence speaks louder than words. Legend tells that the keeper's oath is renewed in secret ceremonies beneath the moons. Gentle gaze, a ritual of remembrance, reverence, and resolve. The keeper is both guardian and witness, a living link between past and future, seen and unseen. Why seal the final door? Because some mysteries are not meant to be unlocked by many. Because the sacred is often fragile, and some truths carry burdens too heavy for the world. The seal is a reminder that faith is a journey, one that respects limits, embraces humility, and honors the unknown. Tonight, as you close your eyes and your breathing softens, imagine the keeper standing watch, silent, steadfast, and serene. Feel the solemn strength of the oath carried through centuries. Know that behind every sealed door there is a story held in trust. Rest now, gentle listener. Let the keeper's oath cradle your dreams. Know that in silence there is strength, and in mystery there is peace. As the night deepens and the world grows quiet, the 7 sealed doors of the Vatican stand like ancient sentinels, guardians of secrets, woven through centuries of faith and mystery. Each door a threshold to a hidden story, a sacred truth, a shadowed memory. They whisper softly, not of fear, but of reverence. Behind these doors lie mirrors, reflecting truth, gardens nurturing hidden growth, halls echoing forgotten confessions, libraries of shadowed knowledge, chapels where time itself is sacred, and cloaks woven from silence. They are not prisons, but sanctuaries, not barriers, but guardians of what is precious and fragile. The act of sealing was not about hiding from the world, but about protecting the fragile balance between knowledge and mystery, power and humility, light and shadow. It is a reminder that some doors are meant to remain closed, not to shut us out, but to invite us to rest, to reflect, and to dream. Tonight, as you lay your head and close your eyes, Imagine walking past these 7 doors. Hear their quiet whisper, an ancient lullaby sung in stone and silence. Feel the peace they offer, a gentle invitation to trust what cannot be seen, to embrace the unknown with calm and curiosity. Let the stories behind the doors drift softly into your dreams, carrying you into a restful night where questions rest gently and answers wait patiently. For in the sacred dance of faith and mystery, there is room for wonder, hope, and peace. Good night, dear dreamer. The 7 doors whisper you to sleep, and in their silence you are safe.